watching the Justin Henry Show on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. Make sure you follow on all social media platforms. All right, going into receivers, top waiver wire receivers now. And so there's not a lot of options out there, like league-winning type options at receiver. So, and you probably already have three. If you start 3 or 4, you probably have better options at receiver already. So the first one I'll be looking at, make sure Jahan Dotson is not out on your waiver wire. I've been talking about him for the last couple weeks. Make sure he is not floating around on your waiver wire. He catches touchdowns. He's a part of that Washington offense. He's the number 2 right now for that team. Make sure Jahan Dotson is not out there. He has a role, a very solid role. Going up against a tough Niners defense this week, but should be good in the future, even for your Week 17 matchup. One interesting note, Tyler Lockett is questionable to play this week. And so he's not expected to play, which means Marquise Goodwin should be available. And we've seen him have some real big weeks and then also some duds. But the Seahawks team is up this week and should be within a high-scoring matchup. So for me, I really like Marquise Goodwin this week as a wide receiver 3 flex option in 12-man leagues. Probably not on the radar in 8-10-man leagues, but in your 16-man leagues, he's probably out there. Go ahead and get him. He's a dart throw, though. He could have a dud game, 3 catches for 28 yards. There's a lot in the realm of possibilities for Marquise Goodwin. So he is an option, though, this week for anybody who's looking for a desperation play at wide receiver. KJ Osborne is a name that could be worth the pickup. I'm not advocating for this to just be like a must pick up, like somebody you have to go out there and get. But against a Carolina team that we've seen, be susceptible to the pass at times, I'm okay with getting them in your deeper leagues. Now, I probably wouldn't start KJ Osborne. He has a low floor. This team could rely on Thielen at any given point in time, TJ Hawkinson at any given point in time. And we know that Justin Jefferson is the guy there. Against his Giants. They're playing the Giants, not Carolina. But Justin Jefferson is the guy there. So for me, KJ Osborne isn't necessarily a must pickup, but he's a guy, if you're struggling at receiver and you're looking for depth for the next 2 weeks, if he has a boom again this week, he's a potential option. So I'd leave him on my bench, not a must pickup. We also saw Romeo Doubs out there. He had 5 catches, played pretty well for the Packers. And so this is an option if you're looking. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers trusts him. They're going to have a little diversity now with him, Lazard, and Christian Watson mixing it up. So it looks like he has a role in this team, and he's somebody as a flex in deeper leagues I'd be okay with in PPR leagues. Outside of that, he's not a must start or a must pick up by any means. But if you're struggling at receiver or you're looking for depth, Romeo Doubs is an okay option. And then the last one, we've seen Rashid Shaheed. Now, I'm not picking up Rashid Shaheed this week, especially with the weather, which I'll talk about the weather here to break this thing up a little bit. But Rashid Shaheed is not a must pick up. He's somebody in dynasty leagues, deeper leagues. Hopefully you had a chance to get him, but do not pick up Rashid Shaheed this week. He has no value unless they're using him in the screen game or he's going to go for, kind of those reverses in the snow. That'd be the only reason, but you're hoping for a Hail Mary type play with him this week with this weather. So I'm staying away from Rashid Shaheed. I like he's an explosive player though, but not this week. Noah Brown is a player that I am looking at. Now, I know Michael Gallup is the sexy name. That's the one that everybody has as the wide receiver 3. But Noah Brown has quietly put over 6 targets up in back-to-back weeks and seen the end zone as well. So to me, I like Noah Brown as a deeper league flex play in 14, 16-man leagues, as a pickup in 12-man leagues, not really on the radar in 8 and 10-man leagues. So if you see Noah Brown out there, I think it's decent. Tough matchup this week against Philly, obviously, but there's potential there. Noah Brown is a name I would just at least keep an eye on, or if you're looking for depth of receiver, go ahead and get him. Zay Jones, to me, I'm not really interested in starting him this week. It's a bad look. A lot of matchups this week are bad looks for some of these pickups, and the weather is a concern there against the Jets. So the Jets already are a tough matchup. He's probably going to see a lot of Sauce Gardner there on the outside since Zay Jones does play on the outside there. So it's not really a good matchup for him this week. It would be more of a pickup for next week. Zay Jones does have a role in the red zone and with this offense for Jacksonville. So it's not necessarily a must pick up, but if he's chilling out there on waivers, it's not a bad look for him, especially if you can get him for week 17 if you happen to make your fantasy championship. And then the last one, we haven't heard this name in a while, but he's seen the end zone in both of his last 2 games. And Julio Jones is out again. Russell Gage Now, for some reason, he's become a big part of this offense over the last 2 weeks. He's not somebody I'd want to start, but if you're in a pinch, Russell Gage has been okay over the last 2 weeks. So I'm not excited about Russell Gage at all by any means, but I can understand if you're dealing with some injuries or things aren't looking. If you had Tyler Lockett, you're looking for an option in deeper leagues. Russell Gage is another name I'd throw out there. I wouldn't feel too confident in, but the matchup ain't too bad for him this week. Waiver wire tight ends. Waiver wire tight ends, baby. All right, so at the tight end position, it's me recommending a tight end right now is saying, hey, I'm shooting a half-court shot. So we got to look for really good opportunities when it comes to tight end because it's been so hit and miss this entire season, right? It's been very hit and miss. Some of the names that are immediately on the list, obviously Chig for the Titans. Conquo, if you're trying to get him in there, okay, that's fine. He has a very low ceiling. Treylon Burks is expected back this week, so it would potentially could be a higher scoring matchup this week for Tennessee. I'm still not recommending Chig unless you absolutely need him in 12-man leagues. If you're in a more shallow league, 8 to 10, check and make sure Dallas Goedert is not available on your waiver wires. He would be a must play if he does give it a go this week, especially in the highest scoring matchup, or at least one of the highest scoring matchups this week against Dallas is expected, Philly and Dallas. So go ahead and get Dallas Goedert in Dallas if you can. Dallas Goedert should be a fine play this week if you can pick him up. He's coming off of IR, so we'll have to see if he's limited in any form or fashion coming into the week. He was expected to give it a go last week, and he didn't, so I'm expecting him to be at full send this week. And Gardner Minshew at quarterback is going to be looking his way. That's what, quarterbacks who haven't played in a while, they tend to go with their tight ends. Dallas Goedert's a good look. There was some questions about Juwan Johnson, who had 2 touchdowns last week for the Saints. I'm not recommending him. Now, he might get a couple catches in this game, and he could get a couple red zone looks, but with not a lot of points expected on the board for the Saints and Browns game, I'm staying away from Juwan Johnson, trying to look for other options who I'll talk about. I got one that's coming I think could have a pretty decent day. So Juwan Johnson is not really a recommend for this week, but if he's out there and you're desperate or you don't think that the weather is going to be too big of an impact, go ahead and get Juwan Johnson. I would stay away from him this week. Dawson Knox has resumed his tight end dominance and should expected, with the weather being a problem, I could see it happening again. Dawson Knox has come out the last couple weeks and had a phenomenal round of games here. So go ahead and get him in your lineups. Josh Allen looks like he's trusting him again, getting him back into the fold. This team is using him as a secondary receiver right now. So Dawson Knox, if he's available somehow in your league, go ahead and get him if somebody dropped him earlier. And then the last one, probably my favorite for the week, going up against the team that's given up the most points to tight ends, and he's definitely out there on waivers. You got to put a little bit of trust in this one. Cade Otton for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, Russell Gage has come back. He's had a role. Julio Jones is out. Mike Evans has been a little inconsistent. Chris Godwin has played his role. But Cade Otton is starting to see a lot more snaps than he has. And so he only had 1 catch last week. So you're probably wondering, why would I be recommending him? When you're on the field that much and you're going up against a team that does give a lot up to the tight end, now there's opportunity there. So Cade Otton to me is a potential pickup and a potential start this week, even in fantasy playoffs, week 16, when you need him the most. Cade Otton is a play that I would comfortably put him in the 7 to 10 point range, whether it's a touchdown or 4 catches for 40 yards. I can see Cade Otton having a role against this Arizona team. So for me, he's in 12-man leagues. I think he's a must pick up, a must start, plus matchup. Arizona has been giving up a lot of yardage to the tight end. And now for defenses. Defense time, baby. Defense wins championships, they say. So there's 4 defenses I identified. One of them may not be available, but I'm going to give you a couple others. Cleveland defense against New Orleans is a start. Like I said, if it's just not even for the scoring, right? It should be a very low-scoring game there in Cleveland. And with the weather being problematic, I don't see a whole lot of yards in this game as well. Now, is there going to be a ton of sacks, ton of turnovers? That remains to be seen because of the conditions. But there's not going to be a lot of points on the board. And if somehow it gets sloppy and there is a touchdown, you want it to be from the Cleveland side. So go ahead and pick up Cleveland. I could see them having a decent day against Saints defense if you're struggling and just looking for a defense. A lot of people are interested in Tennessee defense against Houston. I'm not. That game, to me, is going to be a lot closer. Houston has played tough, and I talked about not trusting the Chiefs defense last week. The same thing for Tennessee. They've been terrible at stopping the pass. So I'm not interested in it at all in Tennessee defense. If that was one you had a question about, I'm not interested at all in Tennessee defense. If you got them and there's just no other option, go ahead. But I think there's better options, as I'll talk about here very soon. Jacksonville defense is one that I would recommend. Now, this kind of seems like, they gave up a lot of points to Dallas last week. It's the Jacksonville Jaguars. Why would you recommend them? They're not a great defense. They're not, but they've been better over the last couple weeks. In back-to-back weeks, they've had 3+ sacks and at least 1 interception in back-to-back games. So Jacksonville defense has been playing a lot better as of late. Double-digit points in back-to-back games as well. And then going up against the Jets team with Zach Wilson starting, who we've seen start to play like Zach Wilson in the second half of the game. Also a lower scoring matchup this week. If you're desperate in deeper leagues, Jacksonville is a play that I'd be looking at. The Detroit Lions have also started to come around here. In 5 of their last 7 games, they've scored 8 fantasy points defensively. The Detroit Lions have. I know. The Detroit Lions have. And going up against a Carolina team who's normally pretty careful with the ball, there shouldn't be a lot of scoring on the Carolina side of the ball. So for me, when I look at options like the Lions, this is more of a deeper play. If you're struggling and there's not a lot out there and the other defenses have been picked up, the Detroit Lions is a sneaky defense you can pick up. Like I said, in 5 of their last 7 games, they've had 8 fantasy points. And then the last defense I want to talk about, Tampa Bay. This one may not be available, but they're going up against Arizona, who's starting Trace McSorley. Should be a lower scoring game for Arizona. Now, they've been terrible all year. Tampa Bay's defense has not been good, even though they came into the season expecting to be one of the top defensive units in fantasy. They haven't been good at all. But Tampa Bay is worth a look this week. And so if you have them on your radar and you're looking, that's a way I would go.